Good morning, everyone. So I have a little chunk of time between my trainings today, and I did want to pop in and post our social studies video about the Plymouth colony. This is our last colony. I'm sorry, I should say settlement. This is our third and final early English settlement that we need to cover for this unit. So we started with Roanoke, the lost colony. Then we talked about Jamestown, which was the first successful English colony. And today we're going to talk about Plymouth. And my bet is that you guys have probably learned about Plymouth in a previous grade level. So some of this may be a review for you, and that is awesome. So if you have your Studies Weekly newspaper with you, I gave out that issue several weeks ago and asked y'all to hang on to it. But if you're anything like me, sometimes things get lost. So if you have your newspaper, awesome. You can also pull up the reading on studiesweekly.com. I am going to look at the passage that we already started. It's the challenges and successes of early American settlements. We've read about Jamestown. Let's scroll down to the last section here. Colonists settled Plymouth for religious freedom. Okay, remember earlier in this unit we talked about those three motivations for settlement: God, gold, or glory. Okay, so if we know that Plymouth was settled for religious freedom, we can probably infer that their motivation was to spread their religion or for God, basically. People looked for religious freedom. People looking for religious freedom started a third settlement in North America. Back in England, King James had ruled that all people must belong to the Church of England. A group called separatists wanted to worship in their own way and refused to join. Many decided to move to the Netherlands. In 1620, the separatists, now known as Pilgrims, sailed to North America on a ship named the Mayflower. The Mayflower carried pilgrims from both England and the Netherlands. The ship landed at Plymouth Bay in what is now Massachusetts. They lived on the ship for the first few months. The pilgrim leaders came up with a government plan that would help all people live together in a peaceful way. All the men signed the agreement, which we know as the Mayflower Compact. Then they elected John Carver as governor. Many people think of the Mayflower Compact as America's first example of true self-government. Like the Jamestown settlers, the Plymouth colonists had difficult times at first. The winter was very cold. Food ran out quickly. Half of the settlers died the first winter. Luckily for the surviving colonists, there were English-speaking American Indians from the Wampanoag tribe nearby. One American Indian named Squanto helped teach the Pilgrims to plant corn, catch fish, and gather maple syrup. Squanto also helped arrange a peace treaty between Chief Massasoit and the Pilgrims. The Wampanoag and the Pilgrims promised to help, not attack each other. So, guys, that's an example of compromise and cooperation right there, right? They were not in conflict with one another. Plymouth colonists elected William Bradford governor in 1621. Under his leadership, Plymouth grew and became successful. People from England learned of the chance for freedom in the New World, and over time, many more people came to settle the region we now call New England. Okay. So we're going to be able to take the information that we just read from that little passage and kind of organize it into our interactive notebook. So I've gone ahead and taken my interactive notebook sheet and I've gone ahead and cut it out, and I could not find any glue sticks in my room. So I just taped it into my notebook here. So pause me, do that. Make sure you cut the tabs so that you can flip it back and forth, okay? And if you're someone who has maybe lost that sheet, it's fine if you just want to write the information on paper. At the very top, just write Plymouth Colony, and then you can take notes with us, even if you've maybe misplaced your note-taking guide. Okay. So at the top here, it says Plymouth Colony. The Pilgrims were English settlers who traveled to America in hopes of finding religious freedom. They established the Plymouth Colony in 1620. We've already answered our why. In other words, the motivation for those, we call them pilgrims, but were then known as separatists, they wanted to escape religious persecution. They did not want to join the Church of England. They had their own religious belief. So their motivation was God, right? The Pilgrims wanted religious freedom. They weren't looking for gold. They weren't looking for glory. Okay. We have their motivation. Again, if I'm going too fast, just pause me. That is no big deal if you are still writing. Okay. You guys probably already know this as well, sailing to America. We know that the Pilgrims or the Separatists sailed to America on a ship called the Mayflower. Okay. And that was in the year 1620. Okay. They sailed from England all the way over to what we now call America. At that point in 1620, it wasn't called America. Okay. But we know that's the route that they took, crossing the Atlantic Ocean. All right, guys, our next tab, we read about the Mayflower Compact. This is really important, okay? The Mayflower Compact was the Pilgrims' form of government, right? This was a document that they used to decide and agree on how they would govern themselves in the New World, okay? All right, very important piece. This is the first example of self-government. We'd not seen this before. Okay, first example of self-government. All right, guys, moving right down the list. Plymouth. Okay, this is first where the Pilgrims landed. In the New World, okay? This is also located in what we now know as the state of Massachusetts. And I want to make sure that I'm spelling Massachusetts correctly. Okay. So this is in that New England region of our country. Next week, we're going to talk about the New England colonies a lot more in depth, okay? Okay. Not unlike the other settlements that we've previously talked about, there were some hardships, right? Starting a settlement is not very easy. Okay. And one of those hardships that the Pilgrims faced was that first winter. Okay. So if you go back to the text, if you have it in front of you, I'm trying to find that paragraph there. Yeah, it said during that first winter, it was one very difficult, and half of the settlers ended up dying during that winter. Okay. That first winter was very, very, very trying for them. All right, guys, two more things that kind of go hand in hand. So we're almost finished here. First, the Wampanoag, okay? This is the Native American tribe that lived nearby. Okay, they were also English speaking. This tribe not only had their native language, but they also spoke English as well. So I'm going to put that in parentheses. Okay. So they helped the Pilgrims learn how to plant and how to grow, basically just help them survive after that first winter. Okay. And this would be an example of cooperation, maybe compromise, but they were not in conflict. Okay. So we weren't having attacks and wars and things like that. This tribe was seriously the saving grace of the Pilgrims. Okay. And one famous member of the Wampanoag was Squanto. Maybe you guys have heard of him before. Okay. All right, guys. And the last thing, we have this idea of what the first Thanksgiving looked like, or maybe what it would have been like. Guys, they didn't have a turkey in the middle of the table. They didn't have mashed potatoes. I love chicken and dumplings on Thanksgiving. They didn't have any of that. So it looked different than probably what we're imagining. But at its core, guys, it was a celebration of the harvest. And it could be seen as a symbol of cooperation between the Pilgrims and the Native Americans, the Wampanoags. Okay. All right, guys. So next week, we're going to look at the formation of the 13 colonies. Maybe you guys have heard of those before. My light's gone out. So get your notes down. If you need to rewind or anything like that, that's fine. Thank you guys for participating, and I will see you guys in morning meeting tomorrow.